Good morning and welcome to the Annecto AGM Showcase for 2021. In the years since we last gathered together, we've all experienced change, difficulty, and a need for more resilience than ever before. Throughout all of that, we've seen amazing instances where the Annecto community have achieved incredible things. The success and optimism, despite all the hardships, is what gives us hope to continue. And that is our theme for today, hope. Throughout the showcase, you will see and hear some of the stories that capture this feeling of hope. Before we begin, a few pieces of housekeeping. I'm Ross Joyce, the Chair and President of Annecto, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you here today. Today's event will consist of the annual general meeting, followed by a showcase of highlights from the past 12 months. In the AGM section, members will be asked to vote on motions by raising their hands. We will then count the votes on screen. And if anyone has any questions throughout, we ask that you type them into the Zoom chat and we will follow up at the close of the event. The full event will be available on Annecto's YouTube channel, which we will share with you in the coming weeks. I'd like to give an introduction now to Uncle Ray Minniecon for the Acknowledgement of Country. Uncle Ray has recorded this acknowledgement for us in advance, as he is currently in Glasgow, Scotland. Annecto has actually sponsored Uncle Ray through the Indigenous Peoples Organisation to be part of the UN Climate Summit and to carve out the space for First Nations people to have their voices heard in the ongoing management of climate change. As we hear Uncle Ray's words, we recognise the importance of both the connection that Indigenous people have to land and water, and also the critical role that First Nations people have in creating our vision of a more inclusive world. Let's hear from Uncle Ray.
G'day, my name is Pastor Ray Minniecon. I'm from the Cubby Cubby people on my father's side. And on my mother's side, I'm from the Gureng people, all around the southeast Queensland area. I also have deep ancestral connections to the people of Ambrym Island in Vanuatu. For Indigenous peoples, an acknowledgement or welcome to country is like if you were to welcome someone into your home, a stranger or a friend, and you were to make them welcome, and make them feel safe and secure and give them the provisions that they need so that you can show your hospitality. For Indigenous peoples, it's similar, but we don't live on a quarter-acre block and a 4-bedroom home. Our home was our whole estate, our whole country, within those designated boundaries that we lived in, and they were huge. My country's big. It takes in the Mary River and a few other places as well. Mountains and streams and animals, all of that is my country. And so when I'm welcoming you to my country, I'm welcoming you into all the resources that we have, all the beauty that you see and feel and experience, all the things that you need for your sustenance and for your enjoyment. And so that we can not only show you hospitality, but we can also develop the friendships that are necessary that we need in our world today. So welcome to country is a very deep ceremonial ritual that Aboriginal people perform constantly, just to make sure that people feel that they're welcome, that the resources of our country are available to them, and that they are free to travel, and free also to take the responsibility of caring for our country with us. And so let me make an acknowledgement of country for all of us today. I hold in my hand here the soil from whose lands I now live on. That's the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I want to acknowledge the wisdom knowledge and expertise of the Gadigal ancestors in their custodianship of the lands and soil that I now call home. I acknowledge and recognise their ancestors whose wisdom have cared for this land for millennia. And through this soil, I recognise and acknowledge the families and children of the Gadigal clan who lived and celebrated and communed on these lands. I also want to recognise and acknowledge all the blood that was shed on these lands and through this soil, either in violence or in innocence. I acknowledge and recognise also the elders who have come recently into this land, who have toiled and died on these lands, and they've left us a legacy that all people can enjoy the benefits of their labour on this soil today. I now recognise also and acknowledge my responsibility, the responsibility I have in stewarding and caring for these lands. This responsibility now rests on my shoulders. My responsibility is to care for the land and soil upon which I now live, so that our children's children can celebrate and enjoy the fruits of this soil, so that they too can live healthy, prosperous and happy lives on the land and soil of the Gadigal people. I also acknowledge and recognise our collective responsibility that we all have to care for all the lands and soils we have the honour to be birthed upon, to live upon, to work upon and to have families upon. Let's affirm our connection to the lands we now live and work upon. Let's also acknowledge all of our elders who have worked on these lands for our benefit. Let's make a pledge that we too will steward the land according to the wisdom, knowledge and expertise that we now possess, so that we can pass on to our children's children the best that our land and soil can provide for them and their children's children. And let us also acknowledge and undertake together to take care of our Mother Earth, so that our future generations are not robbed nor deprived of their rightful inheritance that is our responsibility to pass on to them, so that they too can enjoy the same entitlements, the same benefits, and all the other entitlements that we have enjoyed on these lands and upon these soils that we now call our home. Thank you. Welcome to your country.
And thank you, Uncle Ray. That was fantastic, and just shows the power that First Peoples have and their connection to the land, to this country. And I think that's where we need to be ensuring that we fully support our First Peoples and work towards reconciliation. I'd just like to move to apologies that have been received for the AGM for today. We've received a few. Lee Ogden from the Kale family has sent an apology. Brian Leckie, who I know very well, has sent his apology, which is a shame he's not here with us. And also Peter Fraser has put in his apology. The next part I suppose I want to get to is just the annual report content, which we've made available, and just looking at some of the things that we've been undertaking as a board. We had a big year last year. Despite COVID, a lot was achieved, and we welcomed a new CEO, Cheryl Baziwa. And this year we really focused on looking at a significant emphasis on it, building our board with an important focus on the governance for the organisation. This included a full review of the skills required to drive the organisation forward, which led to a comprehensive recruitment program to engage new directors. I'm very pleased to announce the appointment of 5 new board directors who will significantly enhance our level of debate, oversight, leadership, diversity, and to continue the great work of the previous boards. With a new vision and a 5-year strategic plan for the organisation, the addition of fresh ideas and new skills will help us assist Annecto to achieve its goals. I believe the board is now much more reflective of the communities that we serve. The new directors are Fran Raymond from New South Wales, Uncle Ray Minniecon, who you just saw from New South Wales, Colleen Furlanato from Regional Victoria, C. Moore from the ACT, and Professor Mark Evans from New South Wales. They join our continuing directors, Michael Johns, my deputy, Jennifer Burrows, and Michael Nazari, our treasurer, and myself. We now have a professional, talented, and enthusiastic team to continue our important work. I'd also like to acknowledge our former director, Kirsten Mann, who left the board this year, and thank her for her invaluable contribution, input, and service to Annecto. We also embarked on a best practice induction with all board members. Taking on 5 board members at the one time is probably not something a lot of organisations would do, but we made sure we had a very structured process for that. This process not only assisted new members in understanding the organisation, that's the directors, but it also introduced the concept of governance as leadership. This new approach to governance will inform our board business to elevate the level of contribution we make to the organisation and its direction. As our governance model evolves, we will emphasise a more generative discussion that ensures that the big picture questions are asked and debated. This will allow the board to provide context for the organisation to develop strategy and operational activity. A new 5-year strategic plan. Towards the end of 2020 calendar year, the board and executive leadership team embarked on an ambitious approach to planning for the next 5 years for the organisation and our communities. Together we identified, what does success look like in 2025? This was an exciting process of creating a shared vision of the future and led to our new strategic plan, which will be shared with the organisation in the coming months. I would like to sincerely thank the board for its support and contribution to Annecto, and of course, welcome our new directors to the organisation. I'd like to acknowledge our CEO, Cheryl De Silva, the entire executive leadership team, the management group, also across the organisation, and of course, all of our incredible staff who've been tirelessly delivering essential services to many vulnerable people in the community this year. Well done to the whole Annecto team. You've shone through adversity and you've demonstrated our view of what Annecto is and what we want to still achieve out in the wider community. And I think you also brought that sense of hope to a lot of people throughout these difficult times. It would be great for us to be meeting in person, or at least some of us, but maybe that's a chance for the new year. I'd now like to move on and propose a motion that the minutes of the annual general meeting of Annecto Inc., held on Thursday the 29th of October 2020, again via Zoom conference, be accepted. Would somebody like to move that, please? Just waiting to get confirmation that somebody's moving that. Seymour, thank you, has moved that. Do I have a seconder, please? Waiting on a seconder. Michael Johns, thank you. Moved Seymour, seconded by Michael Johns. All those in favour? Those against? And I believe that's carried. Thank you. General business item 4 deals with the nominations for positions on the Annecto board. Prior to the closing date of Wednesday, the 3rd of November, nominations were received from the following Annecto members and approved in accordance with the Annecto Constitution. The board had appointed directors, but as I mentioned earlier, but they needed to be re-nominated because they go out of office, even though because we appointed them outside of the annual general meeting, they go out of office at the close of this meeting unless we confirm their nominations, which is what we are doing now. I have nominations received from Michael Johns, Michael Nazari, Colleen Furlanetto, Seymour, Mark Evans, Uncle Ray Minniecon, and Fran Raymond. In accordance with the Constitution, as the number of nominations does not exceed the number of vacancies on the board, I now declare the above members elected to the board. Congratulations to all of them, and I look forward to working with them for the benefit of Annecto and our communities. I'd now like to call on the Treasurer, Michael Nazari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to provide the annual financial report for Annecto. The 2020-21 financial year was a challenging year for Annecto and its staff, dealing with a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, which had devastated businesses across all sectors. Despite these challenges, with the assistance of government support packages, such as the JobKeeper subsidy scheme, the business was able to navigate through the year and record total income of $59.1 million, which is a 7% increase on the 2019-2020 result. Home care packages income increased by 6% on the back of a net increase in home care packages. NDIS income increased by 4% through growth in supplemented independent living income. A major reason Annecto was able to post a surplus result was due to cost savings achieved through our strategy to internalise our workforce and the continuation of staff working remotely. The success of the internationalisation strategy not only assisted the increase in revenue, it also reduced agency costs by 31%. Remote working reduced travel, office stationery and printing costs by 42%. All other expenses were in line with achieving the revenue growth for the 2020-2021 financial year. The operating surplus for the year was $1.27 million. The major initiatives in which Annecto invested during 2020-21 were the implementation of a client management and rostering system, AliaCare, MS Dynamics CRM system, and Office 365. It sourced 2 new retail sites in high traffic shopping centres at Forest Hill Chase in Forest Hill and Benton Square, Mornington Peninsula in southeastern Melbourne. We introduced a business intelligence system project utilising Microsoft Power B1 and the internalisation of support work and clinical care and assessment. The next financial year will be one of significant investment into leadership and capability across all Annecto staff groupings. For the first time in Annecto's history, the board agreed to create a specific fund from retained earnings to enable investment into capability building within the organisation. This will enable the continued growth of our people with the right skills and leadership ability to drive growth, efficiency, and even stronger engagement with our client community. Finally, I would like to thank our CFO, Michael Wu, and his professional staff for the very hard work they have provided under difficult circumstances during the course of the year. I'd now like to move the following motion that in accordance with Section 97 of the Associations and Corporations Reform Act 2012 and Clause 30B(2) of the Constitution of the Association, the financial statement for 2020-21 financial year be and are hereby accepted. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Sorry, we're having a few technical difficulties with this. So we have a motion from the Treasurer. Could I get a second, please? Michael Johns has seconded that. All those in favour? Those against? And I can see a few hands up, so I believe that is carried. Thank you, Michael. And it has been a good year for Annecto, despite the continuing dire circumstances we've all been operating and living through. But as we said earlier, you know, thanks to all of our staff for the great effort that they've all put in across the board. And particularly, I want to acknowledge our frontline support workers. You know, they do a fantastic job. We've had a lot of challenges. We've had to do a lot of changes as well. And we'll hear a bit more about those changes coming up in a minute. But I particularly just want to acknowledge the work they do. All of the staff are important. You've heard it, you know, our frontline support staff are the ones that our clients meet on a regular daily basis. So a special thanks to everybody. Now I'd like to hand over to our CEO, Cheryl Zilwa, and get Cheryl to just encapsulate the year that we've had. Thanks, Cheryl.
And thanks, Ross. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us today. I'm going to give you some highlights of the last financial year from an operational point of view. The year also marked my first 12 months as CEO at Annecto, which were in complete lockdown or under very restrictive conditions across the country. 90% of our board, executive and management meetings were held remotely as we continued to adapt to the constantly changing impact of the pandemic. And I hoped that I wouldn't have to mention this a second year, but here we are. So even in this environment, though, we achieved significant milestones that will set us up for the future. One of those milestones was the start of our digital transformation and the move to a more connected workforce. The challenges of operating an essential service remotely, though, really accelerated our progress in this area. All of our support teams moved from hard copy rosters and timesheets to a fully accessible application using their smartphones. This was a significant achievement, with 100% of training and support provided via Zoom. Our staff in the community can now access relevant information before a shift and have real-time updates on their app. We also commenced the development of a live dashboard of information, drawing from all of our systems, from our finance systems, our client systems, safety, staff, so that at a glance we can assess the health of the organisation. But we're only just seeing the results now, so we'll focus a bit more on that next year. The last year marked the start of a deliberate effort to capture, monitor and improve the Annecto culture, which we believe is the strength of our organisation, and many of us, including me, was attracted to the culture of Annecto. One of the indicators of the culture is the staff climate survey, which was completed for the first time in December last year and now provides a baseline for improvements and benchmarking. The feedback was really encouraging, showing a high level of engagement in those who responded. But this year we want a much more representative sample with more people having a say. A follow-up survey is out now, so jump on if you haven't already completed it. It is great to see that we've acted on most areas identified, but one of the things that came out of the survey was the importance of communicating our strategy across the organisation and sharing information in a more timely manner. I think we're getting a bit better at that, but it's certainly a work in progress. Another important piece of work was the review of how we engage with the people we support and how we respond to feedback. This review found some real strengths in our interactions with clients and of course identified areas that could be improved. In particular, making sure everyone understands the changes in government policy and how this actually impacts service delivery is key. And we have had so many changes this year in terms of our impact on service delivery. As Michael mentioned, I think, the last year saw us move more service centres to retail spaces in our local communities. As you may know, the first one was in Mildura, and in the last year we moved the ACT office and now the Southeastern Melbourne office, which is splitting into 2 different retail spaces. These are located in the midst of shopping hubs where we can interact directly with the community and people have the time and space to really explore how we can work together. And that brings me to our brand. After 20 years, we thought it was time to review and refresh the elements of the brand. You'll notice the new colours and logo in the presentation today and in the annual report when you receive it. We went through a detailed process that really helped us to identify the essence of Annecto. What was Annecto about? And this informed all of the elements of the brand. Of course, it's a lot more than just the look and feel. The brand identity expresses how we live and how we breathe our values. A new vision statement emerged as part of the process as well, which is a society where everyone has the opportunity to live with equality and purpose. Over the coming months, we'll roll out the new brand elements across the organisation and embed new language into all of our materials. You'll be able to see some examples during the break, and I encourage you also to have a look at our new website as it's just gone up, and a huge thank you to the marketing team for that. And finally, we continue to see strong growth of services, both in aged care and in disability services, even within the strange and disrupted environment we've been working in. So in closing, I'd like to acknowledge our incredible teams who have worked in the face of significant adversity, particularly in the last few months, where we've had to respond to all the implications of living with COVID-19. Yet everyone continued to exceed our expectations, keeping people safe and well with hope for the future. So thank you to all of our staff, clients and stakeholders across Annecto for contributing to another successful year. We can't do it without you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl, for that informative outline of the year that we've had, and what a year. Wow. I'd like to propose a motion that in accordance with clause 30B(1) of the Constitution of the Association, that the annual report of activities of the Association for the 2020-2021 financial year be and are accepted. Could I have a seconder for that motion, please? Just looking on screen. I'm sure we'll get a seconder in a tick. Fran Raymond has seconded that. Brilliant. I've put the motion forward. All those in favour? Those against? I declare the motion carried. Thank you for that. Thanks, Cheryl. And now I'll hand back to our Treasurer, Michael Mazzari, who'd like to put forward something concerning our auditors. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I would like to put forward the following motion in respect to the auditors, that DFK Kitson's Chartered Accountants be and are hereby appointed as auditors for Annecto Inc. for 2021-2022 financial year.
Thank you, Treasurer. And do we have a seconder for that, please? I believe Jennifer has seconded that. So thank you, Jennifer. All those in favour? I see a few hands up there. Those against? No. I declare that motion carried. Thank you, Treasurer. So we've had a busy year. There's been a lot of things that have been achieved. We've had a refresh in our management sense with new CEO on board. some changes in management itself with the ELT and elsewhere. We've also had a refresh of the board, obviously, as you've just heard, which has been a great achievement, I believe. And I'm so looking forward to continuing to work with all of the board, including those of us that had been carrying on over the last few years through all of the difficulties with COVID, and also in, coming to a good, solid selection process for the new CEO. So welcome again to all the new board directors. It's going to be another busy year coming up, and we've got a lot on. We also managed to get a refresh of the brand, and I think it's looking great. So congratulations to everybody who worked on that as well. We'll now have a short break and return for awards and presentations illustrating Annecto's work over the year, as reported in our annual report. This session is going to be hosted by our special guests, Catherine, Storm and Nathan from our Speakers Bank. So, stay tuned for that. I'm really looking forward to it. I declare the 18th annual general meeting closed and invite you back at your device. We might make it 10:45, I think, give people a little bit of a chance to have a break and do what they need to do. Maybe get a coffee as well, or a tea. And please come back to the Annecto Showcase at 10:45 Melbourne time. I look forward to you joining us then. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Hello, and welcome to Annecto's 2021 Showcase event. My name is Nathan, and I'm glad to be back hosting for another year. Some of you may recognise me from last year's proceedings, while others may also recognise me as one of the hosts of the Speakers Bank podcast. Joining me today are two other co-hosts. Would you please make welcome to the screen, Storm and Catherine.
Hello everyone, I'm Storm and it's a pleasure to be here again this year alongside Nathan and Catherine today. Another online event this year means that we have people joining us from all over Australia. Catherine, why don't you tell our viewers what we have in store for them today?
Thanks, Storm. My name is Catherine and I am very excited to be here with you all. As we know, this year has been tough on many of us. We have faced many challenges that left us feeling disconnected from our friends and family, and we have been forced to adapt to a new way of life. But during these difficult times, we have stayed hopeful, and today we want to celebrate that.
During a time of unprecedented global disruption and chaos, hope can help us to accept change and offers us a new opportunity to see things from a different perspective. The dictionary defines hope as to want something to happen or to be true. When things seem most hopeless, we can always find someone or something around us to put our hope in. Much like a sunrise, each day brings another chance to be courageous, despite the fact that we don't always know what will happen.
Today, we would like to share Annecto's powerful stories of hope. Just like last year, we have collected examples of stories of trials and perseverance. They have taken us on a journey that has enabled us to do more for people in the community. The AGM Showcase this year builds on this theme of hope, and we're excited to present these stories from different perspectives.
So, to kick things off, we are firstly going to hear from Carole, who Annecto supports. Enjoy.
I wouldn't go back for quits. Oh no, this is the best country to live in for sure. My name is Carole Whitrod. I left England in 1960 to come here to Australia. I've lived here. I left when I was 15. My dad applied for a transfer to come out to Australia because he worked for the Bank of New South Wales, as was in those days. We left England on the 2nd of March 1960. It's called the SS Southern Cross. They've demolished it now, would you believe? And we had 6 weeks on the water through the bank. It was lovely. And then from there we came to Melbourne. It was different. You know, when I started work, of course, it was like, you know, I had a very broad English accent. Of course you do. I met this girl and she asked me who I barracked for in the football, and I looked at her and thought, what's she talking about? Anyhow, she said to me, we became very dear friends after that. She said to me, so she said, well, if anybody asks you who you barracked for Collingwood. So my dad always says, go with the flow, do as the Romans do. So anyway, I went along with it, and I'm addicted now. I married an Australian, by the way, a South Australian. Can't help bad luck, can you? Oh, she is amazing. She's wonderful. I look forward to her coming every second week. I wish it was every week, but every second week will do. She's my rocket to roll for this girl. She fixes everything up for me, don't you, darling? Yeah. Oh, well, I was a typist originally, you know. And she got me into words, and she said to me, Ruby said to me, what do you want to do? And I said, God, I don't know. Anyway, she said, why don't you type up your journey to Australia? And I said, oh, well, that's a good idea. That's what I did. Yeah, I Google Maps, I Googled where they lived, and I found the house I was born in, and that's still there, because that was originally my granddad's house. And I was born in the house because there was a skin epidemic broke out at the hospital. Mum couldn't go there, so Mum had me at home. And that's still there. So I was quite interesting. It's interesting to look at all that and just see, I mean, there's things, it's totally different. I mean, 60 years, you imagine it would be. It's a lot of change. I mean, it's all right, these young ones. Like my daughter was just saying, oh, blah, 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 blah. That's all very well for my computers weren't even thought of when I mean, we didn't have television until just before the coronation, I think. And I can remember we never had a television for a while. And I can remember going to my auntie's place, sitting around there, and she had a 9-inch TV, you know how small they were. And we sat around watching the coronation on that. It was unbelievable. And you think, I've got a 50-inch here now. You think, oh my God, how did you do it?
Thanks for sharing your inspirational stories. I hope that all our viewers have found the same success that Carole did in adapting to the changes throughout the year. Regardless, it's great to see that we remain hopeful despite the hardships. Now that we've heard some stories from our community, it would be interesting to hear stories from the work of some of our Annecto staff members and partners.
It is a busy life, yes. I do love it. I'm probably a bit over the top with it. My name is Mary Rekaris. I'm the Transition Coordinator for Housing and Support. I work with participants, do their planning, implementation, and work with them to transition them into supported independent living. We work with tenants who move into their own independent living. It's actually an apartment in another complex, which is among other apartments just for anyone who can live there. So we might have 6 apartments in one building and the rest will be for anyone else who wants to rent. We provide the services for SIL supports, and we also work with participants to ensure that they are transitioning into their home and being supported to build their capability, to connect with their close friends and family, their inner circle. It's been quite difficult at some times. I'm very fortunate that I've got a great team of staff and a great management team of housing and support. They're always there for us. The challenges have been accessibility sometimes, to be able to interact with staff, to interact with tenants when you need to. However, due to the restrictions, sometimes, unless it's really critical, we're unable to attend a site or interact with clients. So not having that face-to-face, it's not the same. Whether it's Zoom or a phone call, it's just not the same. And having my team at work, they're always there, like I said, and they're really, really good. Sometimes we'll have a meeting with an agenda and we'll just completely ignore it and just talk about how we're feeling. So we have some really good days. We have days where we cry. We have days where we laugh and joke and swear. That is really important for us to have. Just, are you okay? Trevor was in aged care for quite a few years, and he was severely underfunded and didn't really receive the proper care he should have when he was in aged care. So when we commenced planning for Trevor, I was in close contact with his support coordinator. Trevor also wasn't very verbal. It was very hard to understand him because of his stroke and the heavy medication he was on. He's just a very typical Aussie bloke. Likes the simple things in life, just wants to go out when he wants to go out, wants to eat what he wants. And, even though he did have some health issues, he didn't care. He just wanted to be in his own home, watch TV, go to bed when he wants to go to bed. So the day he moved in, we had quite a lot of people in there, and we recorded his training and everything. And the support coordinator was there, some of the allied health people, and everybody pitched in to unpack his furniture, put things away. I did cry. I was very emotional because I like I said, first time I met him, I felt very connected to him. And I created a really nice collage of the staff, myself, and some of the management in his apartment, which he absolutely loved because he did have memory issues. he started remembering some of his past life and what he used to do, because we never knew anything about, he used to play in a band, anything about, you know, his stepchildren, just all those little things about his life, what he used to love doing. We knew none of that. And he would just come out with things. And then he started drawing pictures. He would draw things for the staff. It was amazing, like, just to see, like, and when I saw him last week, he was telling me other things I didn't know about him. And, you know, he cracks jokes, shared some of his beautiful memorabilia that he has. It was just really nice to see.
So NAIDOC week of 2020, we saw the art gallery of Kempsey open up, first pop-up gallery, we hope, of many. It's a very exciting time to see our elders present their artwork and also to be able to inspire younger Aboriginal Dunghutti to be able to express themselves through art in their first opportunity to present it. It was also a real connection for family and for community to just recognise the value that culture brings in connecting all of community. And Annecto was very proud to be able to recognise many of the stories that were behind each of those pieces of artwork and the profiles. It came from the heart of the Aboriginal elders, the Dunghutti elders on country, wanting to see something happen, particularly for younger people who were in corrections or had been restricted or limited in their expression of culture. And so it was a vehicle for the elders to be able to really say, this is how culture works for the younger ones, and then for the younger ones to express their culture to the elders. And we were really delighted to see so many first-time artists come through and really connect with both culture and art. One of the keys to building capacity in culture is recognising the vehicles that elders or people who hold culture at the centre of who they are, particularly Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture. And art is one of the ways that totems, cultural representation is passed from generation to generation. So it's a great opportunity when we do a work like this to really recognise a symbolic art piece, but also, of course, the cultural element behind that. And that's how we learn our place, a little bit of our story, where we fit in with our mob, where our connection is, and how we work together going forward in community. One of the purposes of the art gallery and the art space in Kempsey is to be able to provide opportunities for training and employment, connecting the dots really for younger people who perhaps have lost their ways for various reasons, but will reconnect through art, and then through presenting their art, and then hopefully some more opportunities in the workplace will open up. Next steps for the Aboriginal Art Gallery are actually the official naming from our elders. So we'll have the opportunity for a number of the Annecto elders, Aboriginal identified, to come together and name it culturally. And then we're also looking at our digital presence with our online website, which will be connected through the Annecto website. So we look forward to inviting you to the next art gallery opening, and then also for our digital presence representing Aboriginal artists across the different spaces and lands that Annecto works in.
Life will often throw us unexpected challenge that tests our strength and resilience. But it is up to us to choose whether we give up in the face of adversity or embrace change and continue on. Mary and Trevor's experiences are the perfect example of how choosing to stay hopeful when things seem hopeless can have a positive outcome for both you and the people around you. Lastly, let's hear about the experiences of Anna and the Murphys.
So sort of cut off all our enjoyable times.
Social gatherings. I'm Margaret Murphy,
I'm Tom.
And we're husband and wife.
Not being allowed to go to church is a pretty serious thing with me. Not being allowed to go on what we call men's matters, which is a trip that the men used to take every fortnight on a Friday.
I miss Probus. I miss my CWA, Country Women's Association. 56 years I've been in it. It's great. I've got a lot of friends in it. We had a family Zoom every Sunday during COVID. I've been using the computer for 17 years. My daughter Genevieve, she's the youngest one. She taught me every bit of it.
Yeah, Mum's good. I'm not so good.
Tom won't use it.
Well,
He's got his phone.
I'm 90.
You're not 90 yet.
Oh, well, no. I'm not used to these newfangled ideas.
We were apart for about a week. It wasn't too good. I couldn't see him. I used to ring him up on the phone.
I dare say Annecto had a big hand in helping me afterwards, helping me through. Just press these numbers here. The girls have put a lot of numbers in, a lot of people. I've just got to, work them down. Well, they call me brothers.
He's got 6 brothers, 5 brothers, and 3 sisters.
And we all have a talk. That's a very convenient thing to have, really, as far as, keeping in touch.
We trust Vicky.
Yeah, she's always on time.
Always on time. She comes about, she stays here for 2.5 hours.
Always does more than she has to.
She keeps her house tidy. I like a tidy house.
And she keeps an eye on us, reports back to Annecto, sometimes too much, I reckon. She's a bit of a light in our lives, really.
I had a hard life in Australia when I started, a very hard life. My name is Anna Chojecki. I born in Hungary. My age is 89 years young, and we come to Australia in 54. When we come from Hungary with the train, we was 3.5 weeks on a train. 3 families in one carriage, no toilet, no food, nothing really, nothing to eat, to drink. And when we come to Austria, they gave us some food before we went a little bit further. We were like refugees. We had no money. That Hungarian money what we had was not much, because in a war we had not much. And we was there for 8.5 years. Then we come to Australia. I said to my mother, better if we go away from Germany to find a better life. And I started in wool factory. I was working 3 jobs, 3 machines there. I never learned sewing, and they teach me. I was working 14 years there. I had my daughter in between, and after 4 months, I had to start to go to work because the money was not enough. My husband don't get enough money. When I left work, I start to knit and crochet and keep the time like this. How I used to make blankets for the old people.
for a nursing home, and I was not making socks, caps, scarves, and we sent it away to the poor country. I can't do nothing anymore with knitting. It sticks, the sickness sticks over, and I can't crochet anymore. I have trouble with my hand and with my shoulder. The girl come, and that is a big help from Annecto, because they help me a lot now. The girl come and shower me and cleaning my house a little bit and take me shopping, or if I have to go to the doctors. Mostly I like to have the pictures, and I see the friends, and sometimes when they see a message or something like that, you know. I'm missing my family. They can't come how they like to come, but Annecto is a big help for me, because the grandkids can't come, but they come and visit me sometimes. I mean, I have flowers, I have trees, and a couple of tomatoes I planted. That's what I like, to go out and see what I can do a little bit in a garden. I like to work in a garden, but I can't do too much. But I still enjoy my flowers, what I having, you know, and a little bit gardening, because fresh food, what you have in a garden, is much better. Mostly I make sausage roll and I make meat pies. I made ravioli last week, and I sharing it with my care, and she said she never had ravioli like that. I said, well, that is the Hungarian rye, because I still do many things, the Hungarian rye or German. Not too much Australian, because I can't eat lamb.
Sometimes we just can't comprehend the impact we can have on each other's lives, especially during times of disruption and isolation. More often than not, it's the little things we do for people that can have the biggest impact on those around us. Annecto didn't just help them with the big things, but the smaller things as well. For Thomas, Margaret, and Anna, this was provided in the form of a simple smile and warm, friendly conversation with their support workers, which made the biggest difference of all. Just before we head into a quick 10-minute break, I'd like to take a moment to thank all those that took the time to open up and share their stories with us here this morning. I look forward to sharing more when we return. Please feel free to stretch your legs or grab a cup of tea or coffee, and we will return at 11:20 a.m. In the meantime, please enjoy a presentation with more highlights from this year's Pop-Up Art Gallery event in Kempsey.
Hello everyone and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the presentation from the Kempsey Art Gallery. If you missed it, don't worry, the full video will be available online after this event. I'm sure you are wondering what else we have to share with you today. Well, while it's important to showcase the good news from the year, it is also important to acknowledge the tough ones.
That's right, Catherine. Part of being able to grow is learning how to adapt when faced with challenges, which can sometimes be very difficult. I remember last year we had a group of people in a panel that discussed important topics that affected our organisation. This year, we have another round of panellists to continue these conversations. To discuss this in more detail, we would like to invite today's panellists to share their experiences. Nathan, who will be joining us today?
I'd like to make welcome to the screen Lucy, Mike, Carolynne, and Leah. Over to you, Lucy.
Thank you, Nathan. As described in this year's annual report, hope during a time of disruption and chaos helps us accept change and embrace the opportunity to evolve, adapt, and see things from a new perspective. Having hope when things seem hopeless is like the sun rising on each new day, another chance to be authentic and courageous, despite not knowing what the day will bring. After all this disruption, we are hopeful. Each new sunrise is a certainty, and the rising light we see each morning gives us hope that today we can do more for the people we support and our community than what we did yesterday. So today, our panel will be diving into our theme of hope from their own different perspectives in the work that they do. So let me introduce each of the panel members. We have Leah Anderson, Housing and Support Manager for Annecto, Carolynne Smith, General Manager of Western and Grampians regions, and Michael Hercock, Executive Manager of National Business and Community Development. So let me begin with you, Leah. Leah has been a leader at Annecto, oversighting disability and aged care services for over 10 years. Leah has focused her passion on the development of alternative housing options for people who have complex support needs, and has led to the expansion of Annecto's Housing and Support Department. In doing so, Annecto has become a leader in providing alternative living options and choices to people where previously these choices were limited. With the right combination of support, assistive technology, and purpose-built environments, different lives and opportunities have and are emerging. So Leah's complex support and living in your own home has not even been thought of as an option in the past. So can you tell us what role has hope played in the work that you and your team have done over the past 12 months, and in particular in these times of COVID?
Thank you, Lucy. Martin Luther said, "Everything that is done in this world is done by hope." Choosing who you want to live with and where you want to live is a choice that most of us take for granted. In my last 3 years, I've had the privilege of working with 21 individuals to finally move out of aged care and inappropriate housing into their own homes. And I can tell you, it definitely took more than packing boxes in a truck to do this. We were against the odds. From COVID to lack of confidence, these brave individuals, through the face of adversity, rose to the challenge. People were told they cannot leave where they were living, and they were not permitted to collect any of their belongings. But we didn't give up. We were here to stay and make the difference we could make, step by step, day by day. We learned a lot about ourselves and the work that we do. Having the right housing environments and the right support framework can really make such a profound impact on someone's life. And we could not have done it without hope. In 2020, we had the privilege of working with an individual who was in residential care for many years. We had catch-ups with his support team and health practitioners over a span of about 3 months. They were keen to move him in as quickly as possible, purely due to his emotional and mental health suffering significantly. His wife was unable to stay with him, and he was looking forward to living a normal life in their own space, on their own. We were on track for his move planned for April in 2020. Due to COVID, we were given notice from his aged care facility that he would need to move out on the same day or he would be locked into the facility for an unknown period of time. As chaotic and exhausting as what it was, and after many phone calls and incredible support from our external partnerships, together we moved him into his new home with his wife within 6 hours. Hope and resilience supported all of us to realise our potential. And of course, we need to make special mention to our tears, our frustrations, and many lockdowns which kept us on our toes. We treated each other as humans. We laughed, we cried, we fought, we negotiated, and most importantly, we included everybody in the planning. We stood beside the person and reassured them to know that they had the courage and strength to do it. Finally, the experiences we have shared with individuals we support has shown us that complex health support can be delivered outside of institutionalised settings. We have successfully worked with individuals to provide staff from Annecto that are specifically trained to deliver their supports and to ensure they have the confidence and familiarity with staff. What a celebration. Without us having hope and having courage, none of this could happen.
Thanks, Leah. So that idea of continuing on when the odds seem stacked up against you is really starting to emerge. So our next speaker, Carolynne Smith, General Manager of Western Grampians Regions, joined Annecto through the merger with, sorry, just bear with me 2 secs, through the merger with Merrimew 3 years ago. Carolynne heads up one of the largest regions of Annecto, spanning the geographical area from Hopeton in Victoria on the border of the Wimmera-Mallee borders to the inner western suburbs of Melbourne, supporting people with disabilities who have complex needs, along with people who experience ageing. Enabling people to stay living in their own home and connected to their community is at the heart of Carolynne's work and her team's work. A fierce advocate for change and improving a system that often does not work for people who have barriers. People's lives are being changed slowly but surely. Carolynne, the last 12 months saw COVID-19 threatening supports that people needed, particularly in country areas and where it's relied on so heavily. What role did Hope play with you and your teams in this time?
Hi, Lucy. Well, when COVID-19 presented itself to us in 2019, we made a very intentional decision to continue services and support for as many people as we possibly could. Obviously, this was a bit more limited in the community because of restrictions, but we continue to support people in their homes and in group services programs, which are in Ballarat, Yarraville, Bacchus Marsh and Mountain. We knew it would be important to many people to attend places they knew and see people that they knew. People we support, or many people we support, thrive and survive on routine and consistency, and I can't tell you how important that is. We also knew that we would be keeping people safe and families safe. Families told us that without this option, they wouldn't know what would have happened. People and families have always had a choice and could attend as usual if they wanted to. We also had to be very careful, of course, and considerate of COVID-19 guidelines and government direction. And thankfully, Annecto were on the front from this from day one. We did keep our doors open, which meant that we could stay the hard yards with the people we support. We didn't close our doors, Lucy, and we didn't walk away.
What I'm hearing from you, Carolynne, is that the staying in difficult situations with others is not always easy, but is an essential key part of how Annecto works alongside people.
Every day.
That really comes through. So our third speaker today is Michael Hercock, Executive Manager of National Business and Community Development. Mike started and developed Annecto's business in Sydney nearly 8 years ago, which has seen immense growth for New South Wales, and what started supporting 34 people is now supporting approximately 270 people in their own homes and communities, and along with 100 staff across New South Wales, ACT and Queensland. Significant when there was only 2 staff members, Mike being one of them initially. Working with working with and alongside diverse communities, including First Peoples and Coal communities, as we heard earlier. Mike's focus is now turning to Annecto's role in community development. So watch this space. So Mike, can you tell us how Hope has played a role in the work that you and the team in New South Wales, ACT and Queensland have done in communities, and how the realities of lockdown and pandemics changed what was needed?
Thanks, Lucy. Well, you know, I think Hope, you have to acknowledge that the darkness that we face in our work, particularly listening to Carolynne and Leah's stories, is that there's often a lot of hopelessness in the spaces that we go into and that we try and stay in. And there's never more true than a lot of our communities that are, for various reasons, tormented by their powerlessness. They're often really struggling to have a voice, and COVID has brought that out more than anything else, that isolation. And so for me, looking at how we have kind of seen hope, or I've observed hope, I was reminded more clearly when Uncle Ray, the Annecto board member who did Acknowledgement of Country, jumped on a plane because a bunch of us supported him as a community to get to the climate change conference in Glasgow. And that may seem strange because we're an age and disability provider, but actually we're about the whole community and we're about the whole space that the community lives in. And having a first person voice in Glasgow is profound. Yet the reality was that wasn't going to take place unless people actually came together and said, how do we get them there? And so from where I come from, when we listen to community, when we listen to the things that are going on outside of the square service delivery models, that's when we can bring hope into communities, and then we can see a defiant voice, a voice that actually brings some hope, not just to ourselves individually, but to all of us.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And going on from that, there's a psychotherapist and consultant, Paul Hoggett, who quotes Jonathan Lee by describing the concept of radical hope, the commitment to the idea that the goodness of the world actually is greater than our ability to understand it, and that in spite of what appears to be hopeless or where despair may exist, by facing the problem head on in what you're describing, and doing something regardless of whether things may or may not change or not, radical hope moves us to action. So in saying that, and you've shared some really, really impactful stories, all three of you. Mike, I want to invite you to share an experience of hope as a leader that has carried you over the last 12 months.
I think the thing that inspires me in Annecto, and even being amongst you strong black female leaders, is the leadership that you see around you and that you recognise, and it does give you hope. And the example I want to share is the work actually that was seen in one of the stories in our Macedonian community, and that came initially from a real desire to see cultural appropriate responses to happen here in the Macedonian community. The person who bridged that gap is a Muslim woman from Bangladesh who recognized the powerlessness and stepped over the line to ask what are the questions in another culture that she could bridge the gap for. Now, Habiba, I think, is one of the examples of the remarkable leaders that we have in Annecto that bring hope, because not only are they facing their own challenges in their own world views, they are actually able to see them and then bridge that and bring hope into someone else's space. So that, for me, just recognising some of the work, particularly in that community, is something that I take great hope from.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful story that demonstrates diversity and difference in cultures can actually unite us, I think, Mike, and can mobilise us into different actions. I think Absolutely. It also is a beautiful, beautiful story about our principle of humanity. So, Carolynne, how about you? What has been your experience of hope as a leader that has kept you going over the last 12 months?
Lucy, I quite often think about this in relation to my job as a whole, and I always think about what gets me out of bed every day and what brings me to work. And that's pretty simple. It's the work that we do with the people we support every day. Many of the people we support don't know the impact of COVID, and it's important to them that their world is what it needs to be. So we support people whose lives are at times are way more complex and challenging than yours and mine. For example, we support a gentleman in Ballarat who lives alone. He's very isolated. He hasn't had any services in his life for many years. He has a brother who visits, who brings along a microwave each time, cooks for him, makes sure he's okay, sleeps in his car, and then goes home. And that's been going on for many years because this gentleman, there's no services that have engaged with him. The other part to that story is that he does live in his own home, but he's dismantled it pretty much from the inside out. That he has no bathroom or kitchen. Many windows are broken. We don't know really whether he does that or whether the community do that, whether there's others that torment him in the community, but he does it pretty hard out there. What we do, well, we've never actually seen him. We've never actually met him. We've seen his dog. We hear his dog. Our staff go there, part of our team go there each week and they take him clothes because we know that he doesn't have a lot. We leave the clothes at the back door. We also leave a note and a pen telling him who we are and that he can contact us if he wants to. We do leave a note. So the amazing part of this is that it's been nearly 12 months of doing this for him or with him. And we are just about, hopefully, to meet him in the park for a pizza with his brother. So, you know, stories like that, that's what gets me out of bed. Obviously, for supporting people in complex needs, we are really relying on great care teams. This particular gentleman has an incredibly dedicated guardian, for example, who just always looks for the best option. So the good news for that is that we're becoming really familiar to him, and hopefully that one day we'll get to support him. So being able to work with this gentleman is what gives me hope. What we do with him and with others is we give people a chance to live differently. A lot of the people that we have met or we meet have been limited by a diagnosis or being different. They've been limited by history or their reputation, or just limited by a community or a system that's quite fearful. We have a very different perspective and look for an opportunity that may not have existed for them before. Obviously, like I said, funding is important and great care teams make this work too. The other thing that makes me proud and gets me out of bed every day is the staff. We have a very dedicated, loyal, tough, brave and self-aware and resilient team, and they are incredible. So a goal or a plan isn't going to work without a great team, and we have heaps of those. So we listen to the people, we find out what's important to them, we find out what they need, we navigate the system with them, and being a part of all this is what gives me hope.
Really powerful stories, Carolynne, about you and the staff that you're working with and the people that you're working alongside. And what I'm hearing there is that the drive for different opportunities for others, and in particular, the people being able to tell a different story about themselves. It seems critical in the work that you do, Carolynne.
Yeah, and that's right. And it's not a cookie cutter world out there. People shouldn't be treated as if they are the same as the next person or the last person. Everybody needs to be asked what's important to them and given an opportunity to live how they want to.
Yeah. Thank you. So Leah, over to you. What has been your experience of hope as a leader in the last 12 months?
There's a lot, but I think the key thing is for me is knowing that there are over 5,000 young people still living in aged care across the country. So we talk about radical hope. Oh my gosh, this is our daily life. We're constantly challenged in our work by bureaucracy and brick walls, but it doesn't slow us down. And we have seen so many individuals that we work with living out their dreams and aspirations and just getting along with their lives. In the past year, probably what's kept me turning up every day are the possibilities for the people that we support. Earlier in the year, we saw an individual with complex physical support needs join his family on a fishing charter. It was his first holiday in a long time. His confidence increased and he finally had the courage to apply for a job, which resulted in him gaining paid employment. He's so excited about his life and what he can achieve that supports are now less important. Living his life with independence has become his main priority. He sees his supports as the connector to helping him achieve what he's set out to do for the week, the year, the rest of his life. He's out and about when we're not in lockdown, of course. He loves his apartment and he loves living on his own terms. And this is absolutely due to his hard work, perseverance and spirit. Regardless of how challenging or chaotic it is, this work has definitely taught me how to continue in these tough times, keep showing up, and most importantly, keeping our spirit alive for the work and the people that we work with. This is how I want to show up to work every day, with my spirit alive, no matter how dark the circumstances are.
Well, thank you, Leah. And thank you, Leah and Carolynne and Mike, for your heartfelt stories. And I think your passion for the work in which you all do comes and shines through immensely. So in doing this work, it's important to recognise the humanity, which I think each of you have shown, the humanity of everyone in the Annecto community, our staff and the people we work with and alongside, as a thread that pulls us forward and together. When we are driven by that, we can see beyond complexity, beyond adversity, and have hope for the future. Radical hope is not just about determination and courage and doing something without knowing what the outcome will be, but it is also about love and refinding all that is gentle and kind in the world. Together as humans, radical hope and actions can actually make radical change. Thank you so much to Mike, Carolynne and Leah for joining us for this conversation. I'd like to have a round of applause for our panel members and the work and their teams do. So when we have a chance to come together as an organisation like this, even if we can't be in the same building, it is important to celebrate our success. To that end, I would like now to call on Jennifer Burrows, our Culture Committee Chair and Annecto board member, to conduct our annual awards presentation.
Thank you very much, Lucy. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you and Leah and Mike and Carolynne for your insight into the lived experience of hope today. This year, I'm proud to introduce to you 3 outstanding members of the Annecto community through our annual awards. While we would love to individually applaud all of our award recipients, we ask that you remain on mute for now. There'll be an opportunity to congratulate our award winners at the end of this section. To begin, we recognise the achievements of those who live and breathe the value of inclusion. The Annecto Inclusion Award gives us the chance to celebrate an individual, group or business who has demonstrated through their actions and leadership the importance of inclusion, not as an afterthought, but as a vital aspect of what we achieve as a community. Honourable mentions this year go to Janine Howard, Jade Tulin, Vicky Britton, Marie Jackson, Saman Bouchal, Tracy Hartley, Judith Stewart, Carly Borger, Rodora Brooking, Sharon Coffey, and Lynn Betts, who were each nominated under this award category for their outstanding contribution to inclusion throughout the year. Congratulations to each of you for your honourable mention. This year's winner of the Annecto Inclusion Award is Ruby Barber Pritchard. Congratulations, Ruby. Ruby embodies the ethos of the organisation and is a walking ambassador for Annecto. In the past year, Ruby has facilitated the Stay Connected program, which connects people to their community and the community at large through the use of an iPad. And we saw an example of this in the earlier presentations. Ruby's work went above and beyond to include materials that were suitable for multicultural contexts, which enhanced inclusion for groups with different needs. Congratulations again, Ruby. Our second award is the Annecto Empowerment Award, which honours an individual or organisation who demonstrate achievements in advocacy, particularly for carers and or people with acquired brain injury. This award is sponsored by the Annecto board and is in memory of Mr. Craig Gush, a previous director of Annecto who was a staunch advocate for these groups. In his memory, we are proud to declare this year's winner of the Annecto Empowerment Award is Abdul Mohammed. Congratulations, Abdul. Abdul is a great advocate and strives to support tenants to be included and participate autonomously in their communities. His passion and commitment provides tenants with the confidence that their wishes and goals are front and centre of his work practice. Our final award for this year is the Ron and Nellie Carhill Scholarship. Mr. Ron Carhill, a long-standing committee member of David House and a founding member of Annecto, lends his name and legacy to this award, which comes with funding for personal development. The Carhill Scholarship goes each year to a person who is dedicated to improving the lives of older people with a disability, associated with David House in Yarraville, Victoria. The recipient is someone who has shown a desire to further develop their skills, knowledge and services, with a focus on ageing and dementia in people with an intellectual disability. I am very pleased to announce the 2021 Carhill Scholarship is awarded to Lauren Creasy. Congratulations, Lauren. Lauren is the practice coordinator at Bacchus Marsh, Melton and Ballarat and has worked for Annecto for 9 years. Lauren has always supported people in a way that they needed and always considers the person's potential and their dreams and goals. Lauren is adaptable, always positive, and seeks the work we do as an opportunity and has fun doing it. The Carhill family have asked that a short statement be read on their behalf. Our warmest congratulations go to Lauren. The positive and unrelenting leadership, care and support demonstrated by Lauren epitomises all that we hoped the award would represent. This year marks 11 years since the inception of the Ron Carhill Award, now known as the Ron and Nellie Carhill Award since the passing of our mother, Nellie, early last year. Our brother Glenn attended Annecto David House for 57 years. He was 4 when he first started, and he is now 62. David House is always his happy place. Glenn has Down syndrome. He now suffers with dementia and has been in care for the last 3.5 years. Glenn's dementia is such that he is no longer able to attend David House. However, Annecto support is as important today as ever. Annecto is assisting Glenn with daily one-on-one care from support workers. Lauren commenced 9 years ago with Annecto as a support worker, and this role no doubt enhances her leadership role today. Glenn was recently unable to have the assistance of his regular daily support workers due to a positive COVID case in his care home. The first day his support worker was able to resume assisting Glenn again, he was having a really sleepy day. When he eventually opened his eyes and he saw his support worker sitting there next to him, he said, I miss you. His way of saying, I have missed you. Annecto David House runs heavily through our veins as a result of a lifelong connection engineered throughout our childhood by our parents and the love we have for our beautiful brother. It holds a very special place in our family's heart. That was written by Lee, Pam, Sandra, and Glenn. On behalf of the Annecto community, I congratulate our 3 award recipients for 2021. Let's take a moment to applaud these achievements through a short video before our chair, Ross, concludes this year's event. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And wow, what a showcase. I don't like to use the words just inspiration, but I think it's been very thoughtful. I certainly appreciate that the honesty, and I'll put that in my comments, the honesty of all the presenters. And I think just an impressive display of the work that individuals are doing, including the work that Annecto supports and undertakes. So I found it a great session. And obviously, congratulations to the winners of the awards. We think it's a fitting way to recognise people's contribution and the work they've done and how they're living their lives. So congratulations for everybody that's won. Thank everybody for attending this year's AGM and Showcase. And I'm looking forward to actually seeing people in person. But, you know, I think we're all a bit like that, and particularly those of us in the Melbourne side of things, where we had nearly 9 months of total days in lockdown. But of course, our thoughts are still with people that, and I'm well aware of people that aged and also people with disability who still have been in lockdown and still must stay in lockdown, at least at this point, until they're satisfied that the vaccination levels, etc., are sufficient enough to allow them to at least come out of that. So thoughts with everybody in that regard. Thanks to all the wonderful work of all the staff that have been involved in doing this, our marketing and events people, Emily, who supports our staff, our senior staff, and all of the others that have been involved in this. I'm not going to get into the names, otherwise I'm going to get into trouble because I'll miss someone. But look, a sincere thank you. I think it's been a great event. We normally have a little bit of technical hitches. However, that's just the way it goes when you're trying to do things remotely and not in the same places. And we can rely on our third world NBN broadband to give us some grief at times. But look, thank you everybody for coming along. It's been great to have everybody present. I see we've had a really good number of people on board. And on behalf of myself, the board, and the management and all the staff of Annecto, thanks everybody for getting involved, and thank you for everybody for outlining your individual experiences. It's been really great. So I'll leave you with that and just say that Annecto continues to forge ahead. We've had a lot of great outcomes. We continue to make sure that at the centre of all of that are the people that we support and empower, and that's what we want to continue doing. So thank you all. I'll now close the event for this year and look forward to catching up with a number of you in person over the next 12 months. Thank you so much. Goodbye and stay safe.
Now it's time to bring the 2021 showcase to a close. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to join us in reflecting on yet another year that has continued to challenge us and has forever changed our society as we know it. It really has been wonderful to see the hard work and dedication that Annecto continues to do in local communities.
If I have learned anything from today, it's that staying hopeful during challenging times is easier said than done. But when we have the courage to be hopeful and embrace change, we can improve the lives of ourselves and our community.
On behalf of myself, Catherine and Nathan, and the Annecto community, it has been a pleasure hosting this year's AGM Showcase. We hope the next year will bring better outcomes for all of us. Stay hopeful, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of your day. And in the words of the Looney Tunes, that's all, folks.